Welcome back to the Belief Lab. I'm Dr. Wendi Zimmer, and this podcast is where belief meets communication, leadership, and real life. If you're new here, this is the space where we turn big ideas like mindset, confidence, self-belief into practical communication strategies that you can use immediately in your relationships, your work, your leadership, and your life. And if you've been with me before, welcome back. I'm so excited that all of you are here today because you know that every episode here connects back to one truth. Belief drives how you show up, how you speak up, and how people experience you. And so I am so honored and excited that you have chosen to show up with me today, that you have chosen to invest in yourself because you deserve it. And as we continue on this path to increase our belief in ourselves, to increase who we are as communicators, I know this episode is going to really hit home today. So let's get started. You can be the smartest person in the room, have the best idea, the most experience, or the clearest strategy, and still struggle to communicate in a way that sticks. I know it happens to me all the time. And maybe I'm not the smartest person in the room. To be honest, I try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me. It makes my life so much better. But I often have great ideas, a ton of experience, and true, clear strategies because that's one of my gifts. But I have a hard time communicating it to others. It's not that I don't know what to say. It's that I haven't fully aligned my belief with my clarity. And you may be feeling that as well today. And if you are, I am so glad you're here. Because when your belief is uncertain, your words are uncertain. But when your belief is grounded, your words carry power. And we deserve to be powerful, not to shrink, not to, disappear within ourselves, but to come across as these strong, powerful people that we are. Our words deserve to be heard. So today we're going to dig into what makes communication magnetic, the kind that inspires action, earns trust, and gets remembered, because that's what we're all trying for. We're going to spend some time today looking at the neuroscience of clarity, the psychology of confidence, and the art of authentic connection. And all through that one lens, looking at how belief changes the way we communicate. Because communication isn't about talking more. We often get that wrong. It's not about saying more things. We've said plenty of words. It's about believing deeper and helping other people understand exactly what it is that you are communicating. So I'm going to hit on 5 points today, and I want you to stay with me through all 5 points and really think about how you can apply what we're talking about to your life. Because anytime you're working to learn something new, the stronger you can make connections to the things that are already happening in your life, the more likely the information that you learn is going to stick. And this podcast, if you've been with me before, you know that this is a learning and doing podcast. We don't just sit and passively consume information. We are here to take action today. So the first point is that clarity starts in your mind, not in the words that come out of your mouth. So if you've ever felt like your message feels messy, know that it's not your words. It's actually your thinking. Most people, me included, jump straight into talking. And whether that's talking verbally, or you type the email, you open the meeting, you write the slide, whatever all that is, we do it straight away before we actually think through what we want to say. We treat communication as a task, a list of steps that we're checking off. Like, oh, I have to make the slides for my presentation next week. Oh, I have to send this message to so-and-so. Oh, I have to send a text. But instead of just jumping straight into the words, it's helpful if we think through what we want to say. Because clarity in communication begins as clarity in belief, believing in our message, believing the words that we are going to say. And if our internal message is uncertain, then our external message will always sound scattered because we are not sure exactly what the message is that we're even trying to deliver. And research backs this up. So recently, the Stanford Graduate School of Business did a study. And what they found is that professionals who took even 60 seconds to clarify their purpose before speaking, to really stop and go, what am I trying to say? What do I want people to do as a result of me talking to them? When professionals did that, they were rated 40% higher in clarity and confidence by their peers. 40%. So it's worth them talking. And the thing we have to realize is that our brain possesses language and intention in separate regions. That processing of where language comes from and where intention comes from happens in different places. Because our temporal lobe handles words, but our prefrontal cortex handles the meaning. So if we skip the why and we only get to the what I'm going to say, we actually activate the wrong network in our brain because we are not activating that prefrontal cortex, which is going to handle the meaning. We're activating the temporal lobe, which just handles the words. And as we all know, you can say a whole lot without saying anything. So it's not about the words. It's about the intentionality, the meaning behind the words. According to the Harvard Negotiation Project, people are 3 times more persuasive when they lead with why this matters instead of what I want. What has to be a part of it? Don't get me wrong. You've got to spend some time thinking about what are the words I'm going to use. Words are powerful. But if we start with why am I communicating this message? Why does this matter? Why do I want other people to believe me? That's when the true communication happens. Because when you truly believe in your message, your mind organizes itself around that belief. And your brain prioritizes what's meaningful and it discards the rest of the noise. So you are actually able to come forward with a stronger, more impactful message. So before you have any conversation, this is the acting part of point 1. I want you to ask yourself, first of all, what do I believe? What is the truth that I want to stand on around this message? Number 2, why does it matter? What is the purpose behind what I'm trying to say? And number 3, what do I want them to know, feel, or do? What is the transformation that I'm guiding them toward? Too often we treat communication as transactional. I sent the email. I sent the poll. I popped into your office and asked you a question. But instead, it's not transactional. It's that transformational piece that you're trying to take your audience through. And whether that's formal communication or if it's just something that you're working through logistics in your office, that transformation is important. Because when you do that, when you ask, what do I believe? Why does it matter? What do I want them to know, feel, or do? That's your communication blueprint. And without it, we tend to over-talk. I know I'm guilty. Are you guilty? I'm raising my hand for those of you that are listening, if you're not watching. We all over-talk when we don't get down to the specifics of what do I believe, why does it matter, what do I want them to know, feel, or do. But when you use that communication blueprint, you'll land your message with precision every time. Every single time. So if there's something that really matters, if there's some sort of message that really has to be delivered well, we're not talking about every single time you open your mouth, but the messages that really deliver, walk them through that communication blueprint. So instead of saying, I think this could be a good idea, try, I believe this idea will help us move faster. You're getting to the why. Instead of, I hope this makes sense, try, here's why this matters. You're stepping away from shying, and coming, like I said, withdrawing into yourself, where I hope this makes sense, I hope you like this idea, I think this could be good, to the why you should listen, why this matters. Clear belief creates clear communication. Period. And once you believe and you align your belief and your message, and they are clear to you internally, that's that first step. And then the next challenge, point 2, is delivery. So how you sound, look, and feel when you communicate also matters, because people don't just hear your words, they hear your nervous system. So the second point I want to talk about today is that confidence is communicated before you speak. Confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a signal that your body sends before your words even land. When you're about to send the email, when you're about to speak up in a meeting, when you're about to walk on stage, it's that signal as you're getting ready. The human brain is designed to detect confidence. So within the first 7 seconds of hearing someone speak, your listener's subconscious decides whether to trust you. Period. And it's not, like I said, in that first 7 seconds, you haven't said a ton. So they're not trusting you based upon the words that are coming out of your mouth. They are trusting you based upon your body language, the confidence that you are exuding. And that decision is so important because you want your audience to trust you. If they don't trust you within the first 7 seconds, you've lost them. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. There's actually research that confirms this. Dr. Albert Mehrabian from UCLA found that communication impact is roughly 7% words, 38% tone, and 55% verbal cues. And if you think about the people that you listen to, the people that you trust, the people that you admire, that's largely why they're effective when it comes to communicating what you want to hear. 7% words, 38% tone, and 55% nonverbal cues. Stanford's Presence Lab actually also did a study, and what they found is that posture, breath, and vocal tone can alter perceived credibility by up to 30%, even when the message stays the same. Because if you're strong and your shoulders are back, and you're breathing consistently and slowly, and your tone sounds confident, you come across as you know what you're talking about. But if your posture is slouching, and you're breathing heavy, and your tone is all over the place, or this is a different podcast, but there's different ways, like at the end of your word, what they have found, studies have shown, at the end of your word, if you go up, then it makes you sound like you're asking a question. Like, hi, I'm Dr. Wendi Zimmer. It sounds like I'm asking a question instead of, hi, I'm Dr. Wendi Zimmer. I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm so glad that you're here today. Like, it does not exude confidence. So 30% of your credibility comes from those nonverbal cues. And even Yale did a study on social cognition, and what they found is that confident vocal tone triggers oxytocin, which then, when it releases in your listeners, it literally makes them feel safer around you. Oxytocin is that piece in your brain that truly makes you feel calm and safe. And that's what you want to create. That's a sense you want to create in your listeners, that they are safe around you, that they can listen to you, that you know what you're talking about. Your body and your brain work in this feedback loop. So when you breathe shallow, your body says we're in danger. It goes back to years and years and years ago, hundreds of years ago, when we were constantly fighting for our survival. Because most of the time when you're breathing shallow, it means you're running or you're at a really fast pace. And if we're running away from something, generally. For all you people who are runners, I love you. But back when we were in survival mode, we ran away from things, or we ran when we were trying to hunt down our food, but we were still aware of the danger around us. So that short, shallow breath tells your body you're in danger. Where when you ground your stance and you take a deep breath and you lower your tone, your body says we're safe. We're safe. And that internal shift communicates belief externally. Because when you feel safe, when you feel confident, when you're breathing strong, then your audience feels safe and they can feel your confidence. So the action around this is pretty simple. Anytime you feel yourself getting worked up because you need to communicate a message, start by grounding your stance. Put both feet flat on the floor, relax your shoulders, make your spine tall, and this posture reduces the cortisol in under 2 minutes. So you're already calming down. Then the second thing you can do is slow your exhale. So inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6 counts. I've done that activity or version of it with you before in previous podcasts. This pattern signals your parasympathetic nervous system to restore calm. I'm okay. When you breathe out for a longer period of time than you breathe in, it calms your system. And the third piece that you can do is to eliminate hedge language. So hedge language are fillers. Things like I think, maybe, I just. Each one of those leaks belief. It's just taking it out of you. Instead, replace those fillers with confident openers, like I believe, what we know, here's the next step. Things that make you come across as the strong, intelligent person that you are. And then the fourth thing we can do is end sentences on a downbeat, which is what I told you before. If your tone rises at the end, it sounds uncertain. It's like you're asking a question. If it drops, it signals authority. So ground your stance, slow your exhale, eliminate those filler words, that hedge language like I think and maybe, I was hoping, and then end your sentences on a downbeat. And one of the easy ways to do this is actually if you're working on your breath, if you time your sentences, and it takes a little bit of practice, but if you time your sentences so that you are taking a deep breath at the end of them, you're not breathing in the middle, then you naturally are going to end your sentences on a downbeat. You can't help it because you're running out of air. So you're not going to be able to, rise your tone because you don't have the air to do it. And that takes a little practice. That's a different conversation. So I want you to think about someone who communicates with conviction. It's not about their perfection that you admire. It's their calm presence. It makes you feel confident around them. It makes you feel like they know what they're talking about. And you can train that same physiological signature of belief. It just takes a little practice. It takes a little intentionality to stop, ground your feet, take a deep breath. Pay attention to your tone. Don't use filler words. Because our body broadcasts belief before our words do. And once we can speak with that grounded confidence, there's one final step, and that's turning communication into connection. Because confidence may get people's attention, which is important, but connection is truly the key that earns people's trust. So the third point that I want to hit today is belief creates connection. Because people don't connect with polish, they connect with purpose. And when you're listening to someone speak, again, whether it's formal or informal, you want to make those connections. You want to feel like you can trust them. Otherwise, what's the point? It's just another transactional action that you go through in your daily life. Authenticity is the highest currency in communication. And authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being believable. It doesn't mean you're going to get up and never stumble over your words or never have to correct what you said. But it's about people believing what you are saying. Because when you speak from belief, you communicate two unspoken messages. Number one, I'm grounded in what I'm saying. And number two, I see you and I care. MIT's Human Dynamics Lab found that successful communicators don't speak more, they listen more. They mirror the tone of the people they're speaking to, and they express empathy. That's what matters, because they're making those connections. They're building those relationships. So their audience, whether it's gigantic or one person, feels like the person speaking to them hears them, sees them, cares about what it is that they are struggling with or that they need. In 2022, Gallup found that employees who feel their leaders genuinely listen are 4.6 times more likely to feel engaged and confident, which then, of course, leads to retention. And then more research, specifically on the neuroscience of trust, this study was done in 2017, shows that the brain releases again that oxytocin when it perceives sincerity. Belief expressed authentically activates this response. Your audience sees you as sincere, which of course we want to come across as. We don't want to come across as fake or rehearsed or that we don't care. We want to come across as sincere and empathetic and that we really care about the people that we're speaking to. So a few ways to do this in practice. The first is presence. When you are speaking to others, be fully where you are. Make eye contact, listen in a way that you are as undistracted as possible, because that attention communicates worth. If you're constantly stopping and you're checking your phone or you're checking your watch or you're looking around you because you're completely distracted, then it makes the other person feel like they're not important. They're not important. You don't have time for them. So first is presence. Second way to connect with your audience is empathy. So using a language of empathy. Replace phrases like you need to with "I understand that you." You're not just giving people directives. You're starting to show them, "I understand what you're going through." Or "I'm trying to understand what you're going through." Or "I'm trying to put myself in your situation as best I can." And when you start with validation, saying things like "I understand," or "I hear how important this is to you," then again, it makes people feel seen and heard, especially if the conversation you're having is difficult. Because it's not you against them. That's not what communication looks like. It's coming to a place where you can make connections so that what you have to say is more likely to be well received and heard. The third thing we can do is to briefly share one real example of when we were in a similar situation. Something we learned, something we failed at, a way we grew. Because as people, we remember stories way more than we remember statistics. If you think about all the stats I've already given you in this podcast, you probably don't remember many of them. And that's okay. That's not the point. The point is that you realize stats are good and they give us credibility. And when you're communicating with someone, if you can give them a story to help them realize that, again, you hear them, you understand what they're saying, you've been there before, maybe in a different capacity, but there's something that you can still take away from it, that builds trust and connection. And then the fourth thing we can do is be curious. Ask follow-up questions. Because curiosity, asking people more about themselves, more about what they're concerned about, more about their approach or their insights into what you're saying, proves confidence. It proves that you're not insecure, because insecure communicators dominate. They're like, "I have to be in charge of this entire conversation." Or when you ask questions and you dig deeper into someone else's thoughts, it proves that I'm okay with learning more. I'm okay with you asking me questions. I'm okay with this being a dialogue and not just me speaking at you. I want to give you a good example, actually two, because I think they hit home with this very well. The first is Brené Brown. If you're not familiar with Brené Brown, she's a university professor. She talks a lot about vulnerability, which is a fantastic message. And one thing that she does that I love is she never starts with expertise. She doesn't come out of the box with, "Look at how great I am, look at how much research I've done, look how many publications I have, look at how many talks I've given." Instead, she leads with empathy and belief that courage connects people. That's why she talks about vulnerability. That's why she puts herself out there and gives real life examples of things that she's gone through in her life. The second example is Oprah. Oprah's fantastic on this as well, because she communicates belief by making others feel seen. She will literally say to people, "I see you, I hear you, what you say matters." And Oprah is loved and has been for decades, because she has a way of making people feel like they are the most important person in the room, even when they're talking to Oprah Winfrey. Because belief builds bridges that words alone can't. And so the fourth point that I want to hit today is that belief-driven communication is huge in high-stakes situations. Because when the pressure rises, belief decides how you'll sound. And as we've talked about, that sound component, the nonverbal communication, right, is a huge part. But as the scenarios get more intense, as the stakes rise, you kind of get out of that default mode of, "Oh, I need to make sure that everybody's okay. Oh, I need to make sure that people are heard." And instead, we get into more of a defense mechanism, a defense stance. But we need to not do that. We need to, even when the pressure rises, realize that belief is going to make a massive difference in how we come across to others. And so whether that's you're in an interview, you're giving a keynote, you're engaged in a very conflict-filled situation, we can't default to our over-explaining, rushing, or shutting down. That's what most people do. If you've ever sat on the other side of an interview, you can tell the interviewee is so nervous, which is okay. But they talk really fast and they talk with their hands, which I do all the time anyway. But they don't really even answer the questions because they over-explain, they rush through things. Same thing happens in conflict. Or people will flat out shut down. But the best communicators slow down, which we've already talked about, simplify their message, and they ground themselves in belief. In 2021, the Harvard Business Review found that if you pause for 2 seconds, that's it, 2 seconds, before answering a tough question, it increases your perceived intelligence and composure by 26%. Because you don't just rattle off the first thing that comes out of your head, right? You stop and you pause. It makes you seem more intelligent and more composed. And Google actually did a little research on this a couple years ago too, and they had what they called Project Aristotle. And what they found is there's such a thing as psychological safety. And that's the belief that you can speak up without being judged. And actually, that psychological safety is the #1 predictor of team success. Because if I feel like in my team I can speak up and I'm not going to be judged or ridiculed or put down, then I'm more likely to use my words and I'm more likely to share my ideas, which are probably good ideas. So before answering any high-stakes question, give yourself a second. Inhale, that takes 1 second. Exhale, that takes 1 second. So there's your 2-second pause. And then begin with belief. In 1 second, say, here's what I believe about this. Here are my thoughts. When you do that, that single beat, that 2-second pause and that 1 second of starting with belief, transform so your message is no longer reactive. You're responding. You're responding with intentionality. Instead of saying, I'm not sure, say, here's what I'm seeing so far. Instead of saying, I hope this is okay, say, here's what I recommend. And instead of saying, sorry, this might sound weird or odd or this may be stupid, say, I believe this could be valuable. Don't sell yourself short. Pause. Begin with belief. Because pressure reveals belief. Practice makes it unshakable. So practice this one today. It's so easy. Pause for 2 seconds. Start with belief. Believing in yourself, believing in your message. You'd be amazed how that changes the way people receive what you say. So much of communication is about preparation. Not for what you'll say, but for what you'll believe before you say it. What you need to do before you actually take the steps to start the communication. So the 5th and final point that I want to talk about today is building your daily belief communication practice. How do we do it? Because it's a habit. And with any other habit, you have to practice it. You can't just do it one time and assume that it's going to last forever. You have to practice. So what does that look like? Communication as a whole is a habit. And so is self-doubt. And we get to choose which one we rehearse. Unfortunately, most of the time, we practice self-doubt. We let it live rent-free in our head in that downward spiral that if you've listened to me before, you've heard me communicate very often. But instead of allowing self-doubt to be what we practice, what if instead we practice communicating well? Every conversation we have is training our brain for the next one. If we regularly speak from doubt, if we say, I think, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, this might be stupid, then that language wires into our communication identity. And it tells our brain, like, hey, you don't really know what you're talking about. Obviously, you shouldn't even be speaking up. And then that message continues because negative self-talk is our default most of the time. But if we replace that negative self-talk with belief-based phrasing, we rewire our communication confidence from the inside out. So here's a daily practice that I like to do, and maybe you'll find useful as well. Definitely you can modify it based upon you and what works for you, but having some sort of daily practice to practice your communication and your belief around who you are as a communicator is huge. So the first thing is in the morning, really start thinking about where will my voice matter most today? What are the messages that I need to communicate? What is the difference that I can make? Because when you do that, you set a belief-driven intention before your first interaction. And you start thinking about what messages do I need to deliver today? Why does this matter? And that's how you start your day, with intentionality. It also helps you look at just how amazing your day could be. Because instead of seeing it as, oh, I have all these meetings, or I have all these pieces set up, or oh, I have to teach all of these classes today, or whatever this looks like, instead of seeing your day as a list of tasks that you're checking off, you can see your day as a set of opportunities where your voice can impact others. And then somewhere in the middle of the day, do a reset and check your tone. Ask yourself, okay, I started my morning with figuring out how my voice will impact others. How's it going? Am I speaking from belief today? Am I believing in myself? Is my belief in myself being communicated so that it is contagious to others? Or am I speaking from burnout? Are my words adding value to the people around me, or are they bringing them down? And then at the end of the day, reflect. When did I communicate with clarity and confidence today? When did I shrink? How did things go? Because you want to build that proof. You want to tell your brain, here are times where I communicated effectively. Here are times that my voice mattered. Here are times where I stood strong. Here are the times where I was an effective communicator. Because when you stack that proof, instead of your brain constantly saying like, oh, you're really bad at this, your brain starts paying attention to how good you are at communicating. And then that's the message that starts to live rent free in your head. And you want to make sure you reflect on it because, again, too often we pay attention to all the things that didn't go well and we completely ignore the things that did go well. There's a reason that setting up this type of practice works. Behavioral psychology tells us that small wins reinforce confidence faster than big ones. So pay attention to your small wins throughout the day. Now, if you have a big win, if you have a day where you're like, I had this awesome keynote where I had to get up and give this talk and it was phenomenal and I rocked it, absolutely you celebrate that. Or if you had a meeting where you're like, I'm afraid this meeting is going to be difficult, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and then the meeting was very difficult and you were a rock star, celebrate those as well. But celebrate the small wins, the things that really stack that proof. Because those are the ones that we ignore, but the ones that are going to build our confidence most quickly. And then the neuroplasticity side of this tells us that repeated language patterns create new default circuits in your brains. Our brain likes that continued pattern. So when I keep saying the same things over and over again, and I keep showing my brain that things are working, then it's making our brain connect differently, create new default circuits, and that's important. Because confidence is not found, it's not something you're born with, it's not a talent, it's a skill. And you can train it, one conversation at a time. So to recap for today, clarity begins in belief. You want to communicate clearly to others, believe that you can. Second, confidence is communicated before you speak. Think about how you're going to come across in the nonverbal aspects of your message. Third, connection grows from authenticity, not polish. Make connections with your audience. Help them trust you. Help them see you as human and somebody that they could be friends with. They're more likely to listen to you that way. And fourth, pressure reveals belief and practice makes it stronger. Create a belief practice that you start today to help you pay attention to the small wins that you're getting throughout the day. But then also when things don't go the way that you wanted them to, reflect on why, learn from them, and do something different the next time around. Because my challenge for you this week is before you go into every key conversation, not every single conversation you have, but every key conversation, ask yourself one question. What do I believe right now? Then say it better. Speak with clarity, conviction, compassion, and confidence. You deserve it, and you can. You do these things more and more every day. You just have to start paying attention and celebrating your small wins instead of allowing the times that didn't go the way you wanted it to live rent free in your head. Because at the end of the day, many of us think that we're afraid of public speaking. We're afraid of communicating. We're afraid of putting ourselves out there. But what's actually true is we're afraid of being judged. And so if you can find a way to connect with people, if you can find a way to clarify your message, that judgment reduces significantly. And you can highlight and shine as the fantastic communicator you are. If this episode gave you tools to communicate with more clarity and confidence, share it with a friend or a colleague who leads, teaches, or speaks often. Those people are all around you. We can help each other become stronger communicators, because communication isn't just a skill. It's a reflection of belief. And please subscribe to my channel, leave a review, join me next week here in the Belief Lab, because we're going to talk even more about communication and how we can be the best version of ourselves to truly impact others. The Belief Lab is where your words start to sound as strong as you are. And the world deserves to hear what we have to say. So remember, communication isn't about saying more. It's about believing deeper, and when belief is clear, your message always lands. I'm Dr. Wendi Zimmer. I'm so glad you joined me today, and I'll see you next week. Bye.